my discipline was branding and how to create brands. And branding, again, for those that aren't involved in marketing or branding, it's not a logo, right? It's not a name. It's well beyond that. It's much deeper than that. It's almost like think of a brand as a person.
There are millions of real estate investors out there, and most are stuck with just a couple of properties. They want financial freedom, but their small portfolio ends up costing them more in time, effort, and money than it's worth. Getting out of the rat race seems harder than ever. This show will help you do more deals, better deals, and bigger deals. Finally, you'll be able to reach your income and lifestyle goals. How? By attracting and leveraging private money partners and their capital. Now get ready to raise more money, because here's your host, Dave Dubeau.
Hey folks, welcome back. Today, another great episode. We've got a real estate entrepreneur, capital raiser, multifamily expert, podcaster, educator, you name it. Mark Baltazar has been involved in it in Canadian multifamily real estate investing for a number of years. So, Mark, glad to have you on the show. Great to see you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, happy to chat. And I know you've done a lot over the years, and you've added a ton to the community. So just happy to be able to chat with you and see where this goes. And I'm sure something valuable will come out of it.
I can virtually guarantee it, because we're going to talk about something fun and close to our hearts, because Mark is a marketer and a brand specialist. Prior to jumping into real estate investing, he spent a lot of his professional career around that. So we're going to talk a little bit today, not so much about multifamily investing and the ABCs of how to do it and all that kind of good stuff. We're going to talk about how Mark and his partner have really leveraged podcasting and education along with their core business of real estate investing to kind of get everything going on all 6, 8, 12 cylinders, whatever your variety is of engine there. So Mark, let's just back up a little bit here and very, very briefly tell us a little bit about what got you sparked about real estate. How'd you get involved in multifamily? What, just really like 30 to 60 seconds. What does that journey look like for you guys?
So, real estate, I started investing in real estate 2015, started educating myself in probably 2014. And it was a side hustle at first, because I was a partner in a brand strategy and marketing firm. But it was really eventually to potentially be a lifestyle and to be an exit from a company that I also owned as well. But it was consulting. So the consulting life is, pretty draining, pretty taxing on time. Started with flips and then moved into multifamily. And the main reason for multifamily was that it was a little bit more. I was consulting with businesses. And so business was kind of, the business and economics and the functions of how businesses work and grow and launch new brands and stuff. That was kind of just part of my DNA for a long, almost 20 years. And so multifamily was, again, like a little business into itself. And so I kind of was, and I'm an analyst, background financial analyst. And so I kind of knew how numbers worked, and the ability to get a multiplier, kind of quote unquote, a multiplier on income was not a new concept to me. And I liked that commercial real estate, was valued that way as well. So it was much more business-like for me. And a lot of people get into multifamily and commercial because of, mortgage qualifications. That wasn't the primary reason for me. It was more because there was a clear path to value creation, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, very, very cool. Awesome, Mark. So marketing wise, you come from consulting for 20 years in that space, marketing and branding. I come from years and years of direct response marketing type background. So how, just out of personal curiosity, how have you integrated your marketing background and your branding background into your real estate investing business?
I think branding 101, right, was, I think, and you can see it in the stuff I think we do today. And the whole concept of brand positioning, right? So brand positioning, that's where I spent a lot of time, is how do you create a brand, and what is a brand? First of all, the brand is kind of the feelings and the emotions, how you perceive something. Like you think of Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they all evoke emotion, right? Or a feeling. So how
Or
do you
tooth decay.
yeah, or that. Yeah. But see, the thing is, it's like
Yeah.
good brands are typically less reliant on the product itself. It's really
Mm.
about, they could be selling anything to you, right? It's the emotion, the feeling. Product is a part of it, of course, and product is just an extension of that feeling. And so, my discipline was branding and how to create brands. And branding, again, for those that aren't involved in marketing or branding, it's not a logo, right? It's not a name. It's well beyond that. It's much deeper than that. It's almost like, think of a brand as a person, and a person has multiple levels, personality. They have associations. They have, different layers to their persona. And so, how do you create that? And so it starts, there's a framework that I'm
Mhm.
used to, and it's, know your target. What do they want? What are their needs? Right. What's if your brand was a person, what personality would have? So, very structured way to create, a brand. Right. And so, that discipline that I, taught other companies and worked with other companies, use, that to help create kind of what we have today in peak multifamily, and kind of what it stands for and what it is. And it didn't start off with a logo. It started off with kind of, what are we trying to provide to the market and to the community? What are our values? And then it was like, okay, peak, elevating. So, and it came from that, but it was, I love the marketing side. I love the branding side. And I think
Mhm.
it's an extension of kind of what we're doing today.
Very cool, Mark. So I guess if I'm a mom and pop real estate investor listening to this,
Yeah.
what kind of recommendations do you have for folks around thinking about their branding? Because again, you come into this with a much deeper knowledge than pretty much anybody else would, including
Mhm.
including most entrepreneurs and business owners. But like a mom and pop person who's punching the clock at a job and investing part time, and kind of
Yeah.
like what you were doing back in
Yeah.
2015 when you first got started.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for people around branding in early days?
Yeah. So I would, yeah, awesome question. So I would ignore logo. Don't even think about your logo, because I think that's when people think branding, that's the first thing they go to, is go to Fiverr and create a logo for my name, my
Yeah.
brand. Do that. Don't worry about colors. Don't worry about all the aesthetics, right? That's the last part. In fact, it's going to be very easy once you get through the hard part of branding, which is defining who your customer is. Step one, defining who your customer is. And how you find your customer is, what problem are you trying to solve? So defining what problem you're trying to solve, understanding in this world, whatever market you're in, whether it's real estate or any other small business, where are your customers? Where do they exist? And what do they
Well,
need?
well, maybe let me back up for a second there, Mark. What
Sure.
would you, because within real estate, especially in commercial real estate,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I can think of three different customers that we're
Sure.
trying to serve, or we're trying to gather. We're trying to one group of people that we're trying to communicate with would be our power team members, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
not so much customers, but they're a group that is very, very important there. Another, especially if you're multifamily, if you're doing any self-management or any kind of
Yeah.
self-management of real estate, is your tenants. Those would be another group of customers. And then if you're starting to raise
Yeah.
capital, you're starting to bring on joint venture partners, then that would be a separate group. So when you're talking about figure out who your customers are you
Sure.
thinking about one particular group of customers, or how do you kind of what's your thought process around that?
Yeah. So I can speak to kind of what peak does. So how we help people. So we help people on the investing side. So passive
Okay,
investors. So one of our target groups is our investors, passive investors.
got it.
And the problem we're trying to solve for them is to help them create generational wealth, help them create, wealth through, well, create wealth.
Yeah,
How we do that, we can help them do that through apartment buildings. And so so the brand is built around that.
got it. Yeah.
The other segment of customers or clients that we work with are people that may want to become operators, right? So some coaching and consulting around uh, getting involved, buying your first building, buying your next building, scaling a portfolio, running an apartment building business, right? So that's another group, and we can help. How we help is coaching and consulting. And the third group is helping people acquire. So because of our network of multifamily brokers and having a pretty full deal pipeline, we can connect people with buildings, right? So it's all
Cool.
within the multifamily space, but each one of those has different needs,
Yeah, it's a
uh,
different avatar. It's a different
different
target market
avatars.
that you're going after.
Yeah. But
Very, very
they
cool.
all
Now, when
too,
you first started, chances are you were only going after one avatar. I'm going to guess.
correct.
Would that be, and then would that be the passive investor when you're first starting?
That's right. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the passive investor when we first started, and then it grew from there. And I think it grew from there. I wouldn't say by accident, but I think by virtue of the information we were putting out there. So our marketing strategy for investors was to
Mhm.
put out educational content, and the purpose for educational content is that to position ourselves as thought leaders, right? When you think about multifamily, or when you think about someone who understands and knows multifamily, who do you think of? And the hope was that people would think of us. And if you know them, so Peak, perhaps through our podcast or some of the stuff that we're doing on social, then you have to start to like and trust them. And our like and trust was really how we built that up, or try to build that up and continue to try to build it up, is through
Mhm.
content, and expertise. And what was happening is there was a little bit of a spin-off. And so we were getting asked then, oh, you guys, it seems like you guys know what you're doing. Can you help me? I'm trying to buy a building. I'm trying to buy my next.
Right.
I'm trying to scale. Can you guys help me? And at first it was not really like, that's not kind of our model.
we're trying to get you to invest in our deals. We're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. So yeah. So
And
it
then,
was a over time that kind of
correct.
developed.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the podcast, because
Sure.
I've been podcasting since 2018, but I've been doing interviews for God knows how long,
Mhm.
long time. So how did that come to be for you guys? What were you thinking of when you
Yeah.
first started your podcast?
Yeah. So the idea of the podcast came from, I went to a conference, a multifamily conference in the US.
Mhm.
In Dallas specifically, and there was a segment around kind of marketing and branding and positioning yourself as a thought leader,
Yeah.
and many of the panelists, I believe it was a panel, talked about podcasts, and they each had a podcast, and what they talked about was that what a podcast does, one, it kind of helps you with the thought leadership pillar, right? So if you're looking, if you're trying to develop thought leadership, podcasts are a good way to do that.
Mhm.
The other thing, and the light bulb went off for me when someone said it. I forget exactly who it was. It was Joe Fairless said
Yeah.
this. Okay, and he said, because I mean, he's obviously built a very successful business. I'm sure you know who he is, and I think people in the space would know who he is. Is he said, when I talk to investors, they already know who I am, what I stand for, and it's like they've been talking to me for years, although we've just had the first conversation. And that was like, okay, interesting. That helps with the conversation, the funnel, right?
Yeah,
And
because they know him. He doesn't
yes,
know them yet,
correct.
but
Yeah,
he's been in their ear for God
yeah,
knows how long, months, perhaps
yeah,
years, but
yeah,
hour after hour, they've been listening to his podcast. Yeah,
yeah,
Joe's a very
absolutely.
sharp guy. I had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of years ago. I was on his show as well. So
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So, now, as long as, I mean, I guess the caveat that as long as on your podcast you are being yourself, right? You're being open, transparent, and you are who you are on the podcast, and it's not, you're not putting on a show, right? You're putting,
Mhm.
it's you. And so then when I came back, I spoke to my partner Mike and said, "Hey, listen, we should kind of consider this." And at that time, and I maybe still to this day, there was really no other podcast on multifamily, specifically in Canada. There are multifamily podcasts about in the US, and there was a lot of real estate podcasts, but there was nothing about multifamily kind of. So, the branding hat went on. It's like, okay, there seems like an open space here. Let's start it. And yeah, it's been 4 years ish or so.
Nice. Yeah.
And so what I learned from Joe Fairless in that conference is exactly what's happened, right? Is kind of people listen, and even to this day, I've been listening to you for years, right? And it's kind of, so it's really cool, and kind of going to conferences and stuff. Hey, it's Mark and Mike from the podcast. It's like, holy smokes, really cool. So it's working. It works.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It kind of creates that mini celebrity there. And really somebody was saying it's hard to beat a pod. There's so many different platforms, right? We could be on YouTube, we could be doing Facebook groups, we can be doing all this kind of stuff. But a podcast is so intimate because you're literally in somebody's ear for
Right.
however long,
Yeah.
right? So
I never thought about it like that, but you're right.
yeah. I remember it's kind of creepy years ago before podcasts, we were doing a newsletter. You remember the physical newsletter and the audio CD of the month and all that
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
that's how old I am, Mark. So we're setting out this. And I remember I got a comment from a couple and they said, Dave, we listen to you every week in our hot tub. I'm going, oh, that's a little bit too much
Wow.
information. But I did not know these folks, but they, just like you're saying, Mark, they knew me so well because of these interviews. But you're right. You have to be the genuine article. Like, don't be
Yeah.
trying to put on a show, because then when you meet people
Yeah.
in real life, there's a big disconnect there. So what have you guys found has worked well for you? And maybe tell me a little bit about your podcast. Is it primarily you and your partner talking, or are you interviewing guests, or solo episodes, or a mixture of everything? And what have you guys found has worked best for frequency?
So I would say 95 or more percent of our shows are with guests. So
Mhm.
we're interviewing guests, and primarily, I would say the majority, 90 plus percent, are involved in multifamily in
Mm.
some fashion,
Yeah.
mostly Canadian, purposely. But I think over the last couple years, we have invited our friends from the US to also be on the show in multifamily, because there's a lot to learn across border. Maybe the market dynamics are different, but there's a lot of business learnings that can be shared across. And so we found that to be true. And people are interested in learning about kind of cross border.
Right.
So that's been the format. We're probably going to do more just off the cuff, one like Mike and I just talking about issues of the day, for
Yeah.
example, kind of market updates, which we haven't really done a lot of, especially right now. Just things do change, changing fairly quickly, and as long as we can get the episode out, within a week or so, our discussion is still relevant as to kind of what's happening in multifamily in Canada. What pivots, if any, we're making. What do we see out there? So there'll be a little bit more of that, but we'll continue with the format of interviewing guests, because the other things too, we learn as well, right? I'm an interviewer, I guess, by trade, right? I used to interview, senior executives and CEOs as part of my branding work. So I
Right.
love those conversations, and so I'm in my element, just asking questions, smart or dumb questions, doesn't matter. I'm learning at the same time. So I don't think we'll always interview others, and people like it too.
Yeah.
People are gonna get bored of us if it's just us.
So how often do you guys come out? Are you weekly or biweekly? What do you shoot?
It used to be, so it was bi-weekly. It's the summer was a little bit of a break.
Mhm.
So we'll kind of get back on it now, and kind of get back to kind of a regular schedule. When we are off, the interesting thing is when we are off, we get messages, hey, you guys kind of still doing your podcast. So that's kind of a good or bad sign that we're off, or kind of that we're in demand.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
but yeah, no, it's been good. And yeah, we get messages like, hey, listen, I bought my first building and it's because of you guys, and stuff like that. It's really
That's
like that. I
huge.
mean, that's really why I mean, the objective of the show was to help people get into multifamily. Like that's kind of when we, screen guests and figure out topics. It's the goal is how do we help people get in to multifamily? And originally it started to get people in as operators, but now it's, not so focused in terms of as an operator. It's how do we just get exposure to multifamily? It could be passive, could be active.
Yeah.
Each person's different. So
Yeah, because you can serve multiple markets now, right? You can serve
yeah,
the passive investor, you can help out the people that are looking to actively get into it. Yeah, you've got a variety of different things that
yeah,
you're doing there. So that's smart.
yeah.
I think that's a really good idea, Mark, for you and your partner to, you know, do the do maybe the shorter type episodes where it's just like the weekly update type thing
Mhm.
on what's going on in the market, or
Mhm. Mhm.
you can have different little short little mini type shows. I mean, for crying out loud, I had this show going on, well, my property profit show going on as a weekly podcast for years. Then it was kind of like twice a week. Then it was a little sporadic. Now we've switched to a daily format.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
which
Wow.
is great. Um, just because the avatar I'm reaching with that podcast is the mom and pop real estate investor. This
Yeah.
part, the How to Raise Capital 101, it's also the mom and pop, but it's really focused on raising
Yeah.
capital. That's
Right.
the focus there. But for you guys, because you're seen as thought leaders, and you are, and you're actively involved in multifamily in Canada, and that's your niche, you
Hmm.
do have great stuff to share on at least a weekly basis.
Yeah.
What's going on in the portfolio? What's going on with interest rates? I guess the trick there is speed to production, speed of production, getting that out super quickly.
Yeah.
So, are you guys doing the full audio, video, the whole bit, the whole kit caboodle for your most of your episodes?
So we do record it, and we've used a few different platforms. We're using Zoom right now. We just
Yeah.
kind of switched to Zoom. The audio quality was good. So we have all of our episodes are recorded like as ours are right now. We have not leveraged the video. So the
Okay.
next step is to now kind of we have a catalog of 70 or so episodes, is to start kind of using that content somewhere, YouTube channel,
Yeah.
perhaps. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Um, so yeah, I mean, we have 70 episodes worth of video. So we can definitely start leveraging it, but we haven't to date.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking practicality wise, yeah, the video is great, but you're right. It's a whole nother
Yeah.
level of complexity to get that out and going. But what you might consider doing for the weekly update type thing that's in addition to your normally scheduled
Mhm.
programming is just make sure that just focus on the audio for that, and just maybe even have it raw, pretty much unedited. So
Yeah.
that way you guys can just pump it out and
Yeah.
get it up on the platforms like clockwork every
Yeah.
Monday or every Wednesday or whatever it is
Yeah.
that's coming out. That would simplify your lives. And it doesn't have to be super long, like
Yeah.
literally 5, 10, 15 minutes of you guys going over one particular
Yeah.
thing would be all
Be
that would be
enough.
needed for that.
Yeah.
No, that is awesome. So, Mark, if people want to find out more about you, connect with you guys, you got the podcast, you got lots of different stuff. What would be the number one place people could go to find out all things peak multifamily and Mark Baltazar?
Yeah. I mean, our website. Our website is probably the best, but it has, the podcast there, investment stuff there, our contact information there. So peakmultifamily.ca. And yeah, all of our stuff is there.
Wonderful. Mark, thank you so much. This has been great. I really appreciate your explanation of branding. I thought you did a very good job of kind of simplifying that. And I really appreciate your understanding of where it comes in for the mom and pop real estate investors. It's not about, hey, waste a ton of time on logos and
Yeah.
color schemes and all that kind of fonts, all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
right off the get go. No, it's more about, hey, who are we? Who are we looking to serve?
Yeah.
How best can we do that? Then the other stuff, you can add that on later on and change it as is needed. And I also appreciate you you sharing how you've integrated the podcast and the education side of things in with your core business as active multifamily real estate investors. So thanks for sharing all of that on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was good. This is a topic that I have not talked about very often, on show. So this is great. I love it. Awesome.
I love it too. All right. Thanks a lot, Mark, and everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
This episode is brought to you by moneypartnerformula.com. Our Money Partner Formula service allows you to raise all the private capital you need to do all the deals you want while we handle the hard stuff. We offer reliable and affordable done-for-you marketing services that get you investor meetings booked without all the work. So go ahead and check out the website right now, and then feel free to schedule a call with me, and let's take your portfolio to the next level. Again, that's moneypartnerformula.com. Watch investor meetings pop up in your calendar. We handle the rest.